Chapter 21. Internal Strife. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 21. Internal Strife. Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations. After Lu Cheng's father finished speaking, he pushed Lu Cheng's mother away from his body. Sir, it's all because of this evil woman. She couldn't tolerate that fool. It's all her fault. My son and I are innocent. Lu Cheng seemed to have found hope and said with a trembling voice, yes, it's all my mother's fault. It's all my mother's fault. She thought that my wife was a fool. The last time my wife was pregnant, it was also my mother who made her abort the fetus. Lu Cheng's father continued. Yes, my son is right. All of this has nothing to do with us. It's completely this evil woman's fault. She deserves to die. It's all because of her. Lu Cheng knelt down and crawled to his mother's side. He cried. Mother, just admit it. I know you were just being silly, but now that things have come to this, just admit it. Don't implicate father and me. The internal strife was an eye-opener. No one expected them to accuse each other like this. Those who didn't know the truth would really think that Lu Cheng's mother was the one behind the plan. Those who knew the real story were so indignant. What they found was solid evidence, but they did not expect that Lu Cheng and his father would push the blame to a woman. Wei Shilai had seen countless things in his life. When he saw this scene, he was stunned for a moment. At this time, this father and son actually wanted to get away with it so blatantly under his nose. Lu Cheng's mother widened her eyes and opened her mouth. It took her a long time to come to her senses. What are you guys talking about? She had suffered so much in her life for these two men, but in the end, this was what she got. Tears welled up in Lu Cheng's mother's eyes. Lu Cheng was also crying. Mother, I'm your son. Zhang Guizhi was stunned after a moment. Yes, this was her son. Lu Cheng's father's expression turned cold. You evil woman, don't even think about making my son suffer for you. Hurry up and confess. You harmed someone, so you should pay with your life. After Lu Cheng's father finished speaking to Lu Cheng's mother, he kowtowed heavily to Wei Shilai. Your lordship, please investigate thoroughly. All of this was done by this evil woman. It has nothing to do with us. This evil woman has committed such a horrendous crime. Please punish her so that you can give the public an explanation. Wei Shilai looked at Lu Cheng's mother coldly. Zhang Guizhi, do you plead guilty? Zhang Guizhi's entire body was on the ground. She was wearing a faded cotton shirt, and her entire back was hunched. Her voice was filled with sadness. I plead guilty. All of this was done by me. It has nothing to do with my husband and son. Zhang Guizhi's body trembled as she continued. I was sick of that fool, so I wanted to kill her. I know Madame Wei from the Lu family is a kind-hearted woman, so I got her to be the midwife. Before Madame Wei came, I fed the fool an abortion medicine. When Madame Wei arrived, the medicine took effect. I hadn't given a grain of rice to that fool for many days, and I knew she definitely wouldn't be able to give birth. When the fool died, I asked my husband to arrest Madame Wei and send her to the government. When I was about to cremate the fool's corpse, the Lu family somehow received the news and rushed over. The fool's corpse was sent to the mortuary. When the coroner examined the corpse, he knew that the fool had been mistreated by me. The more I thought about it, the more afraid I became. At that point, I had no choice but to be bold and set fire to the mortuary. I found an excuse and tricked my son into going to Qingshui County to buy spirits and diesel at the time. The day before yesterday, I carried out this plan and it was successful. I know that I'll be given a death sentence. I won't defend myself. I only hope that my family will not be implicated in this matter. After saying that, Zhang Guizhi stopped talking. Lu Cheng's father and Lu Cheng said happily, yes, that's right. That's right. Lu Qing never knew that his mother was so good at lying. But who cared, as long as he could get away with it? If he was convicted of this crime, he would surely die. As for his mother, she had lived for more than half of her life. It was only right for her to be the scapegoat. Zhang Guizhi's confession made a lot of sense. She looked very sincere when she confessed and explained everything clearly. Even the assistant, Zhu Zongyang, nodded at Wei Shilai. After all, psychics could be wrong sometimes. They couldn't afford to punish innocent people. Although they believed that Lu Cheng was also involved, Lu Cheng's mother took responsibility for everything. She also made it clear that what she said was true. Lu Sanyang did not expect things to turn out like this either. Lu Cheng was about to be convicted, but Zhang Guizhi took the blame and wanted to protect her husband and son. She wasn't satisfied with the outcome. Lu Cheng's mother was obviously the scapegoat. The real murderer was Lu Cheng. Why, after everything Lu Cheng had done to her, did his mother still want to protect him? Lu Sanyang could not understand. She looked at Wei Shilai and knew that the case would end with Zhang Guizhi bearing all the responsibility alone. Lu Cheng and his father would be deemed as innocent. Even if there was punishment, it would just be a minor one. However, for Zhang Guizhi, this was a capital crime. The onlookers smashed things at Zhang Guizhi and cursed. "You damn woman, you're evil. When you die, you'll go to hell, boo-hoo, I haven't sought justice for my son who was in the mortuary yet." Boo-hoo, there were a total of 20 burnt corpses in the mortuary. Some were related to murder cases which had not been investigated clearly till now. Unfortunately, the corpses were all gone. It was hard for the families to accept the fact that the mortuary was burned to the ground. Madame Wei was extremely angry. She pointed at Zhang Guizhi and shouted. "Zhang Guizhi, though your daughter-in-law was a fool, she had been pregnant for 10 months. What kind of a cold-blooded creature are you? You're also a woman. You've given birth before. How could you do this?" Zhang Guizhi laid on the ground, letting herself be hit, insulted, and blamed. The assistant had already finished recording everything in the hearing and walked over. "Zhang Guizhi, think carefully. Once you confess, you'll definitely be sentenced to death." Zhang Guizhi trembled and pressed her fingerprint on it. Lu Cheng's father and Lu Cheng heaved a sigh of relief. Lu Cheng was still acting. He wiped his tears and cried. "Mother, why are you so stupid? Mother, you're too stupid. That person was just a fool." Lu Cheng's mother looked at Lu Cheng in a daze. This was her son, but she couldn't understand a word he said. Chapter 22. Returning home safe. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 22. Returning home safe. Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations. Every word turned into a knife that stabbed into her heart. Tears streamed down Zhang Guizhi's face. She opened her mouth as if she wanted to speak. Lu Cheng was shocked and pushed her away before she could utter even a word. "I will never acknowledge you as my mother again for what you've done," Lu Cheng's father added. "That's right. Our family doesn't have a vicious member like you. I'm going to divorce you." Lu Cheng's mother lowered her eyes. Her heart ached so much. Why did it hurt so much? Was this her karma? She knew the consequences of pleading guilty and knew that if she did, she would die. She only wanted to see her son one last time and say a few words of concern. However, Lu Cheng thought that she was going back on her word and was afraid that she would say something else. He deliberately interrupted her and did not give her a chance to speak. Zhang Guizhi confessed. Wei Shilai ordered in a deep voice. "Zhang Guizhi, a wicked woman who set fire to a mortuary and killed 2 people, you will be executed at the market in 3 days. Lu Cheng and his father are pronounced innocent. I've already investigated the coroner and the others who were implicated in this case. They are innocent. I hereby demand Lu Cheng to compensate the Lu family for mental damage. 3 taels of silver. This case is closed. Wei Shilai hit the table with a gavel a few times. Lu Cheng's father and Lu Cheng immediately heaved a sigh of relief. Only then did Lu Sanyang run over. Father, mother, are you all right? Although she was unhappy about this result, she had no choice but to accept it. It was Lu Shun who instigated it, but from the beginning to the end, Lu Shun was not implicated at all. Lu Shun was the most evil person. When he was instructing Lu Cheng, no one saw or heard him say it. Although Lu Sanyang had psychic ability and could see the scene, others couldn't. Madame Wei hugged Lu Sanyang and kissed her forehead. You must be worried sick. I'm fine. God will punish evil. Lu Sanyang leaned into her mother's arms and could feel her mother's overwhelming love for her. Madame Wei loved her daughter and would do anything for her. Lu Sanyang suddenly realized it. She understood why Zhang Guizhi was willing to be the scapegoat for her family. Motherly love was the greatest love in the world. Hence, Zhang Guizhi took all the blame. She was fearless. She did not need to think about what to say. She only needed to follow her heart. No matter how evil Lu Cheng was, she was willing to protect him because Lu Cheng was her son. Mr. Lu hugged Madame Wei and patted her shoulder. Lu Dalong and Lu Erlang looked relieved. Fortunately, everything was fine now. Now that the case was over, they could go home. On the way home, Lu Sanyang kept feeling that someone was following her. She turned around several times but did not see anyone. She held Madame Wei's arm and edged close to her. Mother, I want to eat braised pork. With her mother around, she had nothing to be afraid of. Madame Wei smiled dotingly. All right, I'll make whatever you want to eat. Lu Dalong smiled. Mother, I want to eat fish balls. Mother, I want to eat fried fish. Madame Wei responded. Get lost. Mr. Lu smiled and looked at his wife, daughter, and son, feeling at ease. On the busy street, Chu Yen narrowed his eyes and looked at the figure who was already very far away. He withdrew his gaze and turned to leave. Chu Yen finally returned home. He had left home temporarily to protect Lu Sanyang. Now that she was safe, he could go back. Madame Li was feeding the chickens. She stood in the courtyard with the grain and called. Coo, coo, coo. Hearing the door open, she turned around and was almost scared out of her wits. Why are you back? What was wrong with the government? Why hadn't they arrested Chu Yen yet? Chu Yen glanced at Madame Li and ignored her. He returned to his room, put down his things, and quickly came out. Madame Li was distracted as she watched Chu Yen leave. Madame Li thought for a moment and was no longer in the mood to feed the chickens. She put down the grain and left. She went straight to the government office. After mustering up her courage, she went up and asked. Officer, have you caught the arsonist? The guard answered. Yes, the case is closed. Madame Li was puzzled. That's weird. Why is my stepson back at home then? Did you catch the wrong person? The guard's gaze turned cold. The magistrate investigated this case thoroughly. What nonsense are you spouting? You didn't see your stepson do anything bad, but why are you so sure he was the arsonist? What kind of stepmother are you? Madame Li said unhappily, that's not what I meant. Since you caught the arsonist, can I go collect the reward? The guard was speechless. The clues you provided are unreliable. Are you looking for trouble? Madame Li was furious, but she did not dare to cause trouble here outside the government office. If the murderer was not Chu Yen, then who was it? Madame Li felt that she had to ask around. She was also curious. If Chu Yen was not the murderer, why did he leave home? When Madame Li went back to the smithy, she saw that it was open again. There were many customers inside. Madame Li pursed her lips. Chu Yen was a good blacksmith and his business was not bad, but he had never given her a penny. The thought of it made Madame Li resentful. When Madame Wei returned home, she already knew, from her family, what had happened in the past few days. When she heard that Madame Bai helped a lot, she was stunned for a moment before an awkward expression appeared on her face. Then, get them to come over for dinner tomorrow. No matter what, it was a fact that Madame Bai helped instead of kicking her family when they were down. Mr. Lu smiled. All right. The Lu clan had always been very united when it came to defeating outsiders, even if they had grudges against each other. Madame Wei knew that her family was worried about her, so when she was cooking, she put in a lot of effort to make the dishes they liked. At night, Madame Wei rubbed Lu Erlang's feet. Lu Erlang smiled and said, "Mother, it doesn't hurt anymore." "It's fine." Madame Wei said angrily, "Shut up. If you're crippled, no girl will fall in love with you in the future." Lu Erlang giggled. Hee, it's enough as long as I have mother around. He was already a big boy. When Madame Wei mentioned marriage, he would always feel embarrassed, but at the same time, he had some fantasies about his future wife. Chapter 23. Buddha's Light. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 23. Buddha's Light Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations. His mother had a sharp tongue but a soft heart. She was gentle and capable. What would his future wife be like? If only she could be like his mother. At night, it rained. The spring rain was a little cold and fell gently on the banana leaves. Hearing the raindrops, Lu Sanyang slept very peacefully. During this period of time, she was also very tired, both physically and mentally. In her previous life, she had never experienced anything like what she just did in these past few days. She was relieved to see that Madame Wei was back safely. In a daze, Lu Sanyang felt a little cold. She opened her eyes and found that she was actually in a wasteland. This frightened her. She pinched herself and found that it did not hurt. This was a dream. But this dream was too real. She was a little afraid. Help, help, cries for help came from ahead. Lu Sanyang was so frightened that she took a few steps back. It was raining, but not far ahead, there was a blazing fire, and people were burning in the fire. They were asking for help. Lu Sanyang felt terrible. Without even thinking, she knew where she was. This was the mortuary that was burnt down. Lu Sanyang did not know why she dreamed of this place. However, when she saw these scenes and heard the cries for help, she really wanted to help them. But how could she help? What was she supposed to do? Lu Sanyang squatted down and hugged her head. What was she supposed to do? The cries for help almost drowned her. Lu Sanyang felt an excruciating pain in her head. A holy scripture that she did not recognize appeared in her mind. She did not know what it meant at all. However, she subconsciously read it out loud. Namo Amitabha Buddha. Note. Amitabha Pure Land Rebirth Mantra. Without her noticing it, Lu Sanyang put her palms together. She closed her eyes and gently chanted this scripture. The cries for help in her ears became fewer and fewer. When she opened her eyes again, what appeared in front of her was ruins of the mortuary. There was no cry for help anymore, nor any roaring fire. She saw a wisp of black smoke flying into the night from the ruins, and a golden light flew into her body. When she saw a ball of light, she was instantly woken up. Lu Sanyang sat up in shock and realized that she was not in the wasteland. She heaved a sigh of relief. She was puzzled. This inexplicable power had helped her a lot, but could all the disasters be happening because of her? Lu Sanyang sighed. She thought that from now on, she could live a smooth sailing life. This time, she had to find a husband she liked. Early in the morning, Madame Wei went out grocery shopping after making breakfast. They were going to entertain guests tonight, so she had to prepare some good dishes. After this incident, Madame Wei applied for a few days' leave from the restaurant she worked at. The boss of the restaurant understood that this was an unexpected incident and agreed to her request. Mr. Lu took Lu Daolong and Lu Erlang to buy wine and cigarettes. He thanked all the family members and then invited them to come to their house for dinner. After doing all that, Lu Daolong and Lu Erlang went to Willow Alley. Lu Cheng's mother was about to be executed, but Lu Cheng and his father did not care at all. To them, Lu Cheng's mother was not important. In any case, Lu Cheng's mother was about to die. Lu Erlang and Lu Daolong came to the door and knocked. Lu Cheng, give us the money. Otherwise, don't blame us for being rude to you and your father. This family was so vicious that they even harmed someone who was about to give birth. Lu Cheng's father went to gamble whenever he had some money, so naturally he couldn't fork out any money. Lu Cheng was also afraid. Lu Daolong and Lu Erlang were taller and stronger than him, so he didn't dare to open the door. Are you opening the door or not? If you don't open the door, I'll kick it open. Seeing that Lu Cheng did not come to open the door, Lu Erlang lost his temper. Lu Cheng's father was shocked and pushed Lu Cheng. Son, quickly call your cousin over. He is also involved in this. Let him pay for it. Lu Cheng thought about it and agreed. He went out. Stop knocking. I won't go back on my word. I'll go get the money now. Lu Cheng did not dare to walk through the main door, afraid that he would be beaten if he opened the door. He turned around and ran out through the side door. Lu Cheng came to Lu Shun's house and knocked on the door. Brother, help me. Lu Shun was still recuperating from the beating. When the government officers came to ask, he didn't admit it. The officers were just asking questions, not arresting him. This meant that Lu Cheng did not expose him. Lu Shun wasn't afraid. Even if Lu Cheng exposed him, there was no evidence of his involvement. Lu Shun's mother opened the door and said to Lu Cheng rudely, Lu Cheng, what do you want from my son? He's injured and can't see you. Lu Cheng couldn't be bothered to talk to Lu Shun's mother. He pushed her away and ran in, shouting. Brother, save me. It was his idea. Of course I will help you. You don't have to tell me. I know everything. Lu Shun interrupted Lu Cheng. He already knew that the case was closed. Lu Shun did not know what to say. Lu Cheng was a problem, but he was also someone he could use. Lu Cheng was like a knife in his hand. He would chop the knife wherever he pointed. Lu Shun raised his hand. It's not that I didn't want to go to the hearing. I was beaten up and my hand is broken. Don't blame me. I can't get out of bed these few days. Lu Cheng was originally unhappy, but when he saw that Lu Shun's face was swollen, he calmed down. Lu Cheng knelt down. Brother, what should we do now? My mother has taken the blame. She will be executed in a few days. Thinking about it, Lu Cheng felt a lingering fear. If not for the fact that his mother was willing to take the blame, he wouldn't be able to stand here. Now that his mother was about to be executed and he didn't get any money, the thought of Yang Hua being married to an old guy as a concubine made Lu Cheng panic. Now, he could only fall back upon Lu Shun. Actually, every time Lu Shun gave him an idea, it always worked. It was just that something unexpected happened this time. Lu Shun patted Lu Cheng on the shoulder. Brother, don't be anxious. Tell me what exactly is going on. I'll help you think of a way. He didn't know how the officers could find the whereabouts of the evidence. Lu Shun was also puzzled, so he hoped to get an answer from Lu Cheng. Lu Cheng shuddered. He could never forget the fear that struck him straight to the heart when his mind was read by a psychic. Lu Cheng told Lu Shun everything. After saying that, Lu Cheng was discouraged. Brother, do you think there really are psychics in this world? Chapter 24. Treating the Lu clan. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 24. Treating the Lu clan. Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations. They were supposed to receive apologies from the magistrate that day, but as soon as they reached the place, they were pinned down. Lu Qing felt terrified just thinking about it. The things that the psychic said were so detailed, as if she had seen it with her own eyes. Just thinking about it made his hair stand on ends. Lu Xun fell into deep thought. He did not dare to deny it. Nothing was certain in this world. Lu Qing saw that Lu Xun was deep in thought and recalled that Lu Dalong and Lu Erlang were still waiting at his house. He felt troubled and said, "Brother, Lu Dalong and Lu Erlang are still waiting at my house. What should I do now?" Lu Xun smiled at Lu Qing. "It's all right. I'll give you 3 taels." Lu Xun had always known that his cousin was useless. His father was really incompetent, and so was he. He gave Lu Qing 3 taels of silver before sending him out. After Lu Qing took the money, he was no longer anxious. He did not think that his life would change much. Even if his mother was going to be beheaded in 2 days, he did not care too much about it. Instead, he was glad that he was still alive. With the silver, Lu Qing was no longer afraid. He walked to the main door and stuffed the silver into Lu Dalong's hands. "Here's the silver. Can you leave now?" Looking at Lu Qing's smug expression, Lu Dalong and Lu Erlang couldn't be bothered to talk to such a person. Lu Dalong pointed at Lu Qing. "I'll pretend that nothing happened today. But if there is another time, I'll make you live in hell." Lu Qing shrank his neck in fear. Lu Dalong turned around and left with Lu Erlang after warning him. Lu Qing looked at their backs and spat. "Screw you." Then, he slammed the door shut. On the way home, Lu Erlang couldn't help but say, "First brother, why do I feel that Lu Qing is the murderer while his mother is just the scapegoat?" Lu Qing's mother was going to get executed the day after tomorrow, but Lu Qing didn't seem to be sad at all. Lu Dalong also felt that Lu Qing was the murderer, but since it didn't concern his family, he didn't care. Lu Dalong said calmly, "The wicked will be punished. God is just." Lu Dalong believed that was the case. Otherwise, why would they still be able to find evidence? Lu Erlang thought so too. The 2 of them returned home and gave the taels to their mother. At night, almost everyone in the entire Willow Street gathered in the courtyard of the Lu family's house. The weather was good tonight, and the men drank while chatting. The women also ate at a separate table. Madame Bai also came. Lu Yimyang smiled at Lu Sanyang, and Madame Wei greeted her politely. Madame Bai was very cold, her face expressionless. However, as long as a quarrel didn't break out between them, it was already a good thing. Mr. Lu drank some wine and said with a red face, "It's all thanks to my daughter, Sanyang. If not for her, we wouldn't have been able to get there so quickly. If we were even a minute later, the corpse would have been burnt to ashes." The elders all agreed. Sanyang is indeed a good girl. It's a blessing to have such a good daughter. Mr. Lu smiled. "Yes, she is our family's lucky star." On the woman's side, someone asked Madame Wei. "I remember that your daughter is 14 years old. Have you started matchmaking for her? You have to choose carefully." Madame Wei smiled. Yes. There are a few good boys. I haven't made up my mind yet." Everyone was very concerned about the marriage of the girls. Many people asked curiously, "Which family are these boys from?" Madame Wei lowered her voice. "Originally, I thought Lu Xun, the scholar in Willow Alley, was good. But now that something like this happened, I have decided to reject him." Madame Sun interrupted immediately. "Lu Xun is a good seedling. He might have a lot of potential in the future. Isn't rejecting him too rash?" Lu Xun was not bad looking either. He was a gentle and handsome scholar. Every girl liked him. Madame Sun also had a daughter who was about the same age as Lu Sanyang. She dreamed of her daughter marrying a scholar. Madame Bai smiled. She has high standards. What can you do? She also couldn't stand Madame Wei's arrogant attitude. How could she turn down such a good scholar? Madame Wei glanced at Madame Bai and took a deep breath. If not for the fact that she was the hostess, she would have retorted at this moment. She was at odds with Madame Bai and Madame Sunday. The way these two spoke always made Madame Wei feel uncomfortable. Everyone knew that they were not on good terms. Someone immediately smiled and tried to smooth things over. Sanyang is still young, so there is no hurry. You can take your time and choose. Madame Wei didn't want to argue with Madame Bai and Madame Sun, so she smiled and said, "Yes, Sanyang is still young." After this incident, people from Willow Alley were all excluded from the potential husband for her daughter. When she thought of Willow Alley, she would remember how Lu Cheng and his father mercilessly pinned the blame on Lu Cheng's mother. After all, they had lived together for decades. It was too heartless of them to abandon her just like that. After the meal, everyone left in a happy mood. Lu Yinyang dragged Lu Sanyang to the corner and said with a smile, "Sanyang, your mother's cooking is so good. The dishes today are really delicious." Lu Sanyang smiled. "If you want to learn, I can teach you." Lu Yinyang's eyes lit up. "Sanyang, thank you." Lu Yinyang desperately wanted to learn how to cook so that she could gain a foothold in her in-laws' family in the future. As a girl, Lu Sanyang could relate to Lu Yinyang very well. In her previous life, Lu Yinyang married a butcher in Ling County. If Lu Yinyang had possessed good culinary skills, she would probably have lived a good life. Lu Yinyang felt at ease. Although her mother was still not on good terms with Madame Wei, she had a good relationship with Lu Sanyang. After the dinner ended, Madame Bai went back home with her daughter. Madame Bai touched Lu Yinyang's hair. Comparisons are odious. The boys whom Madame Wei rejected were the ones her daughter liked the most. However, Madame Bai knew very well that a scholar wouldn't take a fancy to her daughter. Chapter 25. Miss Lu, please, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 25. Miss Lu, please, translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations. Lu Yinyang leaned against Madame Bai. "Mother, what are you talking about?" Madame Bai smiled. "Nothing." Lu Yinyang smiled. At the thought that she could learn cooking from Lu Sanyang, she was extremely happy. At night, when Madame Wei mentioned the matter to Mr. Lu, he did not object. Instead, he completely agreed with her. "Reject it. I don't like that scholar either." When Mr. Lu thought of Lu Shun, he did not have a good impression of him. It was obvious that he wanted to side with Lu Cheng, but he acted like he was a fair person. Mr. Lu liked honest, young people, but Lu Shun didn't seem to be a good person. Madame Wei heaved a sigh of relief. "I was worried that you wouldn't agree." Mr. Lu smiled. "Sanyang's marriage is up to you. She's the apple of your eye. I believe in your choice." Madame Wei snorted coldly. "What are you talking about? You make it sound like the two sons are not cherished by me." Mr. Lu smiled and hugged Madame Wei. "I was really worried about you." After Madame Wei married him, she gave birth to 3 children and had always taken good care of the family. When the incident happened, Mr. Lu panicked, not knowing what to do if Madame Wei was gone. Fortunately, everything was fine. Madame Wei did not say anything and quietly leaned on Mr. Lu. Marrying this person was the right thing for her to do. After the incident, the days returned to normal. It was said that when Zhang Guizhi was beheaded, many rotten vegetables and eggs were thrown on her. Lu Cheng and Lu Cheng's father did not go to see her. While people were cursing, they also felt pity for Zhang Guizhi. However, no one in the Lu family went and they wanted nothing to do with it. It was not like they had nothing to do. Mr. Lu Dalong, and Lu Erlang were busy. Madame Wei rested for a few days before going back to the restaurant to work as usual. Lu Sanyang finished embroidering the shoe and started working on another one. Lu Sanyang's good friends were here to see her. Lu Jie, Lu Hui, and Lu Ju were all present. They looked at Lu Sanyang's embroidery and asked, "Sanyang, why does your embroidery look so good? We learned it together, but you are much more skillful than us." Lu Jie loved the lotus flower embroidered by Lu Sanyang. The embroidery was actually flawless and very beautiful. If one did not look close enough, they would feel that it was a real flower. If she used a better thread, it would be even prettier. Lu Hui also looked at it in admiration. "Sanyang, you're so good looking and good at cooking. Even your embroidery is so good now. Every boy will fall in love with you." Lu Ju was also envious. Her family background was not good, and her biological mother died early. Her stepmother made her do a lot of work every day, and she had no time to learn any skill. Looking at Lu Sanyang's embroidery, she was envious. If only she had that much time. Lu Sanyang smiled. "It's easy. I can teach you." Lu Sanyang was a little embarrassed. After all, she had lived to 75 years old and was unmarried in her previous life. After her parents passed away, she didn't like to go out anymore. At home, other than embroidering, she didn't have any other hobbies. After decades of training, she was naturally very good at it. Embroidery was what she did for a living. Since Lu Sanyang was willing to teach, they definitely wouldn't refuse. In the blink of an eye, it was afternoon. They all bid goodbye to Lu Sanyang. After sending the ladies off, Lu Sanyang thought for a while and left home with some money. After making a pair of shoes for her mother, she thought she would make one for her father and 2 brothers as well. When she passed by the smithy, Lu Sanyang frowned as she recalled Chu Yen. Her family had thanked everyone who helped them tide over this crisis, but they forgot the one who helped the most. Lu Sanyang did not even tell her parents about Chu Yan's help. When she thought of it, she felt her face heat up. But she was also afraid of Chu Yan. Now that she still owed him a favor, Lu Sanyang felt a headache coming on. If she did not return the favor, she would feel uncomfortable, but how was she supposed to return it? If she didn't treat him to a meal, would Chu Yan think that she was insincere? Lu Sanyang felt her head hurting at the thought. After buying the materials, Lu Sanyang still did not know what to do. It was almost dark when Lu Sanyang started to cook. In the end, she comforted herself that Chu Yan would be the general of Dingbei in the future. He would not remember such a small matter. Anyway, they would have nothing to do with each other in the future. Why not just forget it? Lu Sanyang heaved a sigh of relief and focused upon preparing dinner. When Madame Wei returned, Lu Sanyang was almost done with the preparation. Mr. Lu Dalong, and Lu Erlang also came back and the family sat together for dinner. Knock, knock, knock. There was a knock on the door. Lu Erlang stood up. "Who is it?" Lu Erlang went to open the door and looked at the stranger outside. "Sir, who are you looking for? Did you come to the wrong place?" Lu Erlang knew everyone in the neighborhood. Without thinking, he felt that this stranger must have the wrong address. Officer Zhou was not wearing a uniform but plain clothes. He was carrying 2 bottles of good wine and 2 pieces of high-quality materials. When he saw Lu Erlang, he immediately grinned. This must be Lu Yuanshuan's house. Officer Zhou remembered very clearly that Lu Sanyang said that her family lived in Willow Street and her father's name was Lu Yuanshuan. Lu Erlang touched his head. "Why are you looking for my father?" Lu Yuanshuan was his father's name. This person brought gifts and spoke politely. Lu Erlang didn't think he was a bad guy and moved aside. "Come in." Officer Zhou smiled gratefully and entered. He put down the gifts and looked at Lu Sanyang. When Lu Sanyang saw Officer Zhou, she became worried. Without asking, she knew why Officer Zhou was here. However, Lu Sanyang didn't want to help him. She didn't want to be a psychic. At that time, she used her psychic ability simply because she wanted to save her mother. If it wasn't for the fact that Lu Cheng had set up her family, she wouldn't have revealed her ability at all. Lu Sanyang looked away. Mr. Lu was confused. "Who are you? Do I know you?" Madame Wei was also confused. Was he here to ask for her daughter's hand in marriage? Madame Wei looked at servant Zhou and said, "If you want to propose marriage, don't you think you need to inform us before coming?" Officer Zhou smiled. "Brother Lu, I'm not here to propose marriage. I have something to ask." Officer Zhou grabbed Mr. Lu's hand and knelt down. "I have something to ask of Miss Lu." Mr. Lu quickly stood up. Let's sit down and talk." "Why are you kneeling?" Lu Dalong and Lu Erlang were dumbfounded. What was going on? Officer Zhou looked at Lu Sanyang and said, "Miss Lu, please help me." At the thought that he was starting to forget his eldest daughter, Officer Zhou felt terribly sad and he broke down in tears. Though he remarried and had children, the loss of his eldest daughter remained a knot in his heart. Chapter 26. I'm sorry you are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 26. I'm sorry translator. Henyi Translations editor. Henyi Translations. He would never forget the look in his late wife's eyes before she died. The main reason he became an officer was because he wanted to find his daughter. Even if his daughter was really dead, he had to bring her remains back. He had promised his late wife that he would not give up searching for her for the rest of his life. Only then did Mr. Lu and Madame Wei realize who he was begging. Lu Sanyang couldn't bear to look at him kneeling there. She stood up and said, please get up." Mr. Lu and Madame Wei's faces turned cold. Mr. Lu helped Officer Zhou up and asked, "Why are you looking for my daughter? You can't force her to marry you." Women's hearts softened easily, but he was a man and would not fall for such petty tricks. 2 drops of tears would not move him. His daughter was still young and there were many people who liked her. Madame Wei thought the same. "Brother, my daughter is just a child. If there's anything you want to tell us, just tell us. If we can help you, we will. If not, there's nothing we can do." Officer Zhou looked at Lu Sanyang with a confused expression on his face. Didn't her family know about her ability? Officer Zhou was a little embarrassed. He didn't expect that Lu Sanyang didn't tell her family about it. After the mortuary case, he couldn't sleep at all and was very tired. "I'm sorry, Miss Lu." Officer Zhou lowered his head apologetically. He knew why Lu Sanyang didn't tell her parents about it. After all, she was just a little girl. Most psychics did not get married in their lives and suffered from all kinds of illnesses. It wasn't easy to be a psychic. Mr. Lu and Madame Wei looked at Lu Sanyang in confusion. Lu Sanyang wanted to keep her ability a secret, but it seemed like she couldn't hide it anymore. She stood up to get the bowl. "Sit down first. Let's talk as we eat." Lu Dalong and Lu Erlang were completely baffled but did not say anything. However, they glanced at Lu Sanyang from time to time. When did their sister become so mysterious? Lu Sanyang briefly told her father and Madame Wei about her ability to be able to communicate with spirits. She only said that she suddenly acquired this ability after she got sick. At that time, when the mortuary was burned down, Lu Qing went back on his word and she was forced to use this God-given ability. Mr. Lu did not know what to say. Even Madame Wei fell silent, no longer smiling. Lu Dalong and Lu Erlang remained quiet as well. Last time, when Lu Sanyang was sick, they had seen a witch and psychic invited over at the house by their parents. However, they could not associate those people with their sister. Once their sister became a psychic, she would have to remain single all her life. Lu Dalong and Lu Erlang couldn't hold it in anymore. Mom, Sun Young is not a psychic. Madame Wei thought so too. Her daughter was a good girl who knew how to embroider and cook. She looked fair and gentle. How could she be a psychic? With a cold face, Madame Wei wanted to chase Officer Zhou away. Dalong, Erlang, send the guest off. Officer Zhou panicked. Miss Lu, please help me. I can do anything. Lu Dalong and Lu Erlang had already stuffed the things that Zhou Yu brought back to him and started to push him out. Lu Sanyang frowned but did not speak. She didn't want to be a psychic either. In her previous life, her greatest regret was not getting married. She did not want to be a psychic and remain single in this life. Before Lu Sanyang could speak, Madame Wei clasped her hands and prayed. God, don't torture my daughter please. Take back this ability. She doesn't want to be a psychic. Lu Sanyang looked at Madame Wei and felt much less guilty about not helping Officer Zhou. To her, the most important thing was taking care of her parents. In her previous life, she was not the only one who regretted not getting married. Madame Wei and Mr. Lu also felt terrible about it. Even if she didn't help Officer Zhou, he wouldn't give up on looking for his daughter. What mattered the most to her was being filial to her parents and making up for the regrets of her previous life. After Officer Zhou was chased out, perhaps because he had thought it through, he did not come looking for trouble again. A few days later, a middle-aged woman came to the house. She was a matchmaker. Lu Sanyang heard Madame Wei rejecting Lu Shun's proposal. Lu Shun was a scholar. The matchmaker had brought a generous sum of money and patted her chest to guarantee that this would be a great marriage. She even used her reputation as a matchmaker to guarantee it. However, much to her surprise, Madame Wei rejected this proposal. The matchmaker was unhappy. What right did the Lu family have to look down on a scholar who had a bright future? No matter how good-looking Lu Sanyang was, she was by no means a rich girl. Madame Wei explained that it was not that she looked down on Lu Shun, but that the match wasn't what they wanted. No matter what Madame Wei said, the matchmaker still looked unhappy. She had guaranteed Lu Shun that this match would work, and Lu Shun also promised her a handsome reward. Knowing that her reward was gone, the matchmaker immediately pulled a long face. Lu Sanyang stopped embroidering. Her mother and the matchmaker were talking in the hall, so she could hear them clearly. Lu Sanyang was also curious and decided to listen in. She was really afraid that Madame Wei would not be able to reject the matchmaker. Luckily, Madame Wei made up her mind. She said, Matchmaker Su, it's not that I look down on Lu Shun, but that they are not compatible. Sanyang is just an ordinary girl. Lu Shun has a bright future ahead of him. He will definitely become an official in the future. He might even take in a concubine. I only have one daughter. After thinking about it, I have decided to marry her to someone else. Hearing her reason, the matchmaker was convinced and her expression softened. That's true. One could tell at a glance that Lu Shun was a promising person. If he was successful, there was no guarantee that he wouldn't take in a concubine. Seeing that her expression had softened, Madame Wei quickly added. Matchmaker Su, you understand, right? I just want to find someone who loves my daughter the most. Matchmaker Su looked at Madame Wei. You have really made up your mind. If she missed such a good son-in-law, she wouldn't be able to find another one as fine as this one. Madame Wei sighed. It's hard to make this decision, but we have to. Matchmaker Su thought for a moment and stopped persuading Madame Wei. If she continued, she'd make Lu Sanyang feel more important. Matchmaker Su stood up. Since you've decided, I won't persuade you anymore. But remember, even if you regret it in the future, there is no coming back. Lu Xun had always been hardworking. It was only a matter of time before he became successful. After matchmaker Su left the Lu family, Madame Wei closed the door with a forced smile before breathing in a sigh of relief. Lu Sanyang heaved a sigh of relief too. At the thought that the money was going to be gone, matchmaker Su got angry and spat at the door of the Lu family's house. A figure walked towards matchmaker Su and said with a smile, "Matchmaker Su, did you come to talk about marriage? Come over to my house." Chapter 27. The Witch Came Again. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 27. The Witch Came Again. Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations. When matchmaker Su saw who it was, she smiled. "Hey, Madame Bai. Has your daughter gotten married?" Madame Bai smiled and waved her hand. "Not yet. There's no hurry. We're taking our time selecting. Do you know any good boys? Can you help suggest a match for my daughter?" Matchmaker Su smiled. She naturally wouldn't reject a business. As she spoke, she followed Madame Bai to her house. After rejecting matchmaker Su, Madame Wei became busy. In the blink of an eye, it was April. Lu Sanyang had already made a brand new pair of shoes for each person in the Lu family. She picked a day and gave the shoes to her parents. Lu Dalong and Lu Erlang were overjoyed. "Sanyang, this is such a beautiful shoe. I don't know if I should wear it or not." Lu Erlang put on his shoes happily. "Brother, you can give them to me if you don't want to wear them. We're about the same size anyway." Lu Dalong slapped him. "In your dreams." Madame Wei's eyes were filled with pride. When she wore this pair of shoes outside, those who had good taste would definitely ask her. Once they knew that this was made by her daughter, they would be envious. Mr. Lu was overjoyed. His daughter was good at cooking and embroidery, and her life in the future would be good. Lu Erlang loved to show off. After getting new shoes, he walked around the streets and alleys that day, showing off to all the friends he knew. When he met Chu Yan, Lu Erlang greeted him happily. "Chu Yan, where are you going?" Chu Yan replied calmly. "West." Lu Erlang smiled and said, "Where?" "I'll go with you. My sister made me new shoes. I'll walk around in them so they'll fit better." Even a fool could tell that he was showing off. Chu Yan lowered his eyes and saw the new pair on Lu Erlang's feet. On the dark blue shoes, there were 2 pine trees embroidered. They were vivid and lifelike. A pair of slender hands appeared in Chu Yan's mind. Lu Sanyang made shoes for Lu Erlang and probably had made them for others as well. She still owed him a favor, but she forgot about it just like that. If she didn't give shoes to him, he would get them himself. His eyes darkened and he did not talk to Lu Erlang any further. Lu Erlang was still in a joyful mood, so he didn't mind being ignored by Chu Yan. After finishing with the shoes, Lu Sanyang had nothing to do. At noon, she cooked porridge and steamed cornbread to send to Mr. Lu, Lu Dalong, and Lu Erlang. After they finished eating, Lu Sanyang took the bowls and chopsticks home. The Lu family had some land in the backyard to grow vegetables. Lu Sanyang was already thinking about what to cook for dinner. When she walked past the street corner, she was pulled to the corner by a rough and large hand. She was about to scream, but her mouth was covered. A low voice came from above Lu Sanyang's head. "It's me." Lu Sanyang wanted to scream even more. Ah, this lunatic. What was he doing? Did Chu Yan have a grudge against her? Lu Sanyang was so scared that she wanted to cry. Chu Yan wrapped his arms around her. "Did you forget something?" Chu Yan let go of her hand. Lu Sanyang gasped. "What did you say?" Lu Sanyang did not want to admit it, but she had a pretty good idea about what Chu Yan meant. She forgot to thank Chu Yan and didn't even mention his good deeds to her parents. Lu Sanyang didn't expect someone who would become a general in the future to be a petty person. You know what I mean. Chu Yen spoke in a low voice. His gaze landed on her hands. These hands were slender and fair. His gaze darkened. Lu Sanyang trembled. I'm sorry, it's my fault. What do you want in return? I'll give it to you. Chu Yen chuckled. Shoes. Lu Sanyang refused, shaking her head vigorously. No, you can't ask for that. As an unmarried daughter, how could she make shoes for other men? Hearing his request, Lu Sanyang immediately blushed. However, Chu Yen did not give her a chance to refuse. I only want shoes. Lu Sanyang lowered her voice. I don't know what size you wear, it was too unreasonable. She wanted to refuse. However, before Lu Sanyang could say anything, Chu Yen gave her a stick. This is the length of my feet. Chu Yen stuffed the branch to Lu Sanyang and let go of her. Holding the branch, Lu Sanyang was angry and frustrated. Chu Yen was simply crazy. How could he make such an unreasonable request? Lu Sanyang took a deep breath. She wanted to throw the stick away, but was afraid that Chu Yen would come looking for her if he couldn't get the shoes. Lu Sanyang gritted her teeth and brought the stick back. What Lu Sanyang did not know was that after she left, Chu Yen appeared at the corner again. Looking at her back, he smiled and left. To make shoes for Chu Yen, Lu Sanyang needed to buy new material. However, she had to be careful and not let anyone know. At night, Madame Wei returned with a woman who was about the same age as her. When Lu Sanyang saw her, she was traumatized. This was the witch who came to perform witchcraft on her when she was seriously ill. At that time, the witch jumped around, chanting a mysterious scripture. She even gave the talisman water to her mother and Madame Wei dissolved it into water for her daughter to drink. Lu Sanyang was extremely disgusted by the water. Lu Sanyang looked confused. Mother, at the thought of that talisman water, Lu Sanyang felt terrible. Li Jingui was a famous witch in Yong County who specialized in dealing with strange things. Madame Wei had been worried about her daughter suddenly acquiring psychic ability. She invited Li Jingui again, hoping that Li Jingui could get rid of her daughter's psychic ability. She did not want her daughter to become a psychic. Psychics were awe-inspiring and no one dared to offend them, but all of them lived their lives alone. Li Jingui smiled at Lu Sanyang and told her to be rest assured. Don't worry, I don't feel anything strange from your daughter. Madame Wei was very cautious and her tone was polite. With you around, I'm not worried at all. It's all thanks to you that Sanyang recovered so quickly. Lu Sanyang did not want to speak. She had recovered quickly because of the medicine. Ever since she was young, Madame Wei had never invited a witch over. It was obvious that Madame Wei was an atheist. However, last time, what Lu Sanyang said frightened Madame Wei. Madame Wei did not believe in heaven or hell. But she invited Li Jingui back nonetheless. Now that she had something to ask of her, she naturally had to say something nice. Simply put, it was flattery. Everyone liked hearing good things about themselves. The doctor liked to be praised for his medical skills. The teacher liked to be praised for being knowledgeable. Girls liked to be praised for being beautiful. Madame Wei praised Li Jingui for her good witchcraft abilities. Li Jingui felt delighted and smiled at Madame Wei. Don't worry, I can deal with all demons and monsters. Chapter 28. Why does this girl smell so good? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 28. Why does this girl smell so good? Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations. Li Jingui finished her meal at home. Mr. Lu, Lu Daolong, and Lu Erlang were not surprised at all. After dinner, they quietly returned to their rooms. Lu Sanyang wanted to reject, but she had no reason to. Madame Wei spent money and time to invite the witch and even treated her to a meal. No matter how unwilling Lu Sanyang was, she did not want to disappoint her mother. After Li Jingui entered Lu Sanyang's bedroom, she looked around and tapped her fingers. She closed her eyes and her mouth moved, as if she was chanting something. The corners of Lu Sanyang's lips twitched. Li Jingui shook the copper bell in her hand a few times before sitting down with a frown. There is some Yin spirit lingering in the room. Sanyang, sit down. Let me take a closer look at you. When Lu Sanyang heard this, she was a little angry. Yin spirit. What nonsense. However, when Madame Wei heard Li Jingui's instructions, she immediately pressed Lu Sanyang down. Li Jingui approached and waved her hand in front of Lu Sanyang's forehead. Lu Sanyang frowned. Li Jingui's hand was very close to her. Although she did not touch her, Lu Sanyang could hear her thoughts. Li Jingui thought to herself. Why does this girl smell so good? There is nothing here. But since I'm here, I can't leave without doing anything. Otherwise, I won't get paid. She had already taken the reward, so she was just putting on a show to reassure Madame Wei. Lu Sanyang did not know what to say. She glanced at Madame Wei, who looked very serious. She watched Li Jingui perform the witchcraft nervously and did not dare to breathe too loudly, afraid that she would disturb Li Jingui. The more mysterious the witchcraft Li Jingui performed, the more at ease Madame Wei was. Lu Sanyang heard Li Jingui mutter a bunch of gibberish, which gave her a headache. Once the ritual was done, Lu Sanyang saw the talisman turn into water and quickly said, Mother, I feel much better. I'm so hungry. I want to eat eggs. Madame Wei smiled. I will go make it for you now. Madame Wei was relieved and left. Li Jingui turned the talisman into ashes and scattered it in the water. She handed it to Lu Sanyang. Girl, drink it. You'll be better after drinking it. It was just some plain water mixed with paper ash. It wouldn't have any effect. But everyone wanted to drink it, so what could she do? Lu Sanyang heard Li Jingui's thoughts clearly. She looked at Li Jingui and said, Granny Li, I don't think I need to drink it. I'm fine now. Li Jingui looked at Lu Sanyang. You don't want to drink because you don't believe me. Li Jingui frowned and was a little displeased. With her reputation, many people were begging to drink her talisman water to ensure their safety. If Lu Sanyang didn't drink it, Li Jingui would feel being looked down upon. Lu Sanyang did not expect Li Jingui to react so strongly. She thought that Li Jingui wouldn't mind because she knew talisman water was just a gimmick. However, now Li Jingui really wanted her to drink the talisman water. Lu Sanyang was not someone without a temper. She looked at Li Jingui coldly. I think you know perfectly well whether talisman water works or not. Lu Sanyang looked like a gentle and beautiful girl. Her eyes were soft, the kind that could make people fall in love with her instantly. It took Li Jingui a while to come back to her senses. This time, she felt even more embarrassed. She thought to herself. This pretty girl is not simple. It took me a while to realize she is accusing me of lying. Li Jingui stopped smiling and became serious. Sanyang, I'm not a liar. This talisman water is really good to drive out evil spirits. Lu Sanyang was speechless. Previously, she was seriously ill and her mother fed her the water while she was unconscious. Now, she was fine, so she couldn't bring herself to drink this disgusting liquid. Lu Sanyang took a deep breath. Granny Li, I won't drink it. You know you are just putting on an act and this talisman water is just a gimmick. But I won't expose you if you don't force me to drink. Lu Sanyang thought that since she had already said so, Li Jingui should understand that she did not have to drink this. However, not only did Li Jingui not understand, she even felt that Lu Sanyang was provoking her. Li Jingui knew a thing or two about mysticism. When she saw her determined gaze, she thought that Lu Sanyang did not believe her. Li Jingui smiled. Miss Lu, if you don't drink this talisman water, it's equivalent to saying I'm a liar. You don't believe in yin and yang in this world, do you? Lu Sanyang frowned, speechless that Li Lingui wouldn't just let her go. She rarely got angry, and had never encountered anything that made her angry. Suddenly, she had the urge to lose her temper. She grabbed Li Jingui's hand and blurted. Li Jingui, you were married at the age of 16 and have 3 children. Because you don't have a son, you were kicked out of your husband's family and settled in a Taoist temple. You came to Yong County as a Taoist nun 20 years ago. Do you want me to continue? The moment Lu Sanyang started speaking, Li Jingui's face turned pale. She looked at Lu Sanyang in fear and opened her mouth, but no words came out. Just now, she was still thinking of showing Lu Sanyang some witchcraft so that she would be terrified and obediently drink the talisman water. But now, her legs were trembling and her face was ashen gray. The moment Lu Sanyang grabbed her wrist, Li Jingui felt an enormous force surrounding her. It was the kind of force she had never experienced. At this moment, Li Jingui only wanted to leave. Luckily, this girl did not compete with her in this business. Otherwise, she would probably be out of work very soon. Lu Sanyang said calmly, Granny Li, can I not drink this talisman water now? Li Jingui nodded with her mouth still wide open in shock. Sure, sure. Lu Sanyang smiled. I hope you won't tell my mother. I just want to live a good life and don't want my mother to worry about me. Li Jingui was a little surprised. Did she not want this ability? Only when one stepped into mysticism did they know how long it would take to achieve Lu Sanyang's level. She actually didn't care about what many psychics dreamt of getting. While Li Jingui was lost in thought, Lu Sanyang's casual remark snapped her back into reality. Lu Sanyang said, my culinary skills are excellent, and my embroidery skills are also superb. Other than that, I don't want anything else. Chapter 29. A blind date. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 29. A blind date. Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations. Li Jingui did not know what to say. She looked at Lu Sanyang and gulped down the talisman water herself. Li Jingui frowned. It was indeed disgusting. However, after being a witch for so many years, she had never seen anyone refuse to drink it. Lu Sanyang was the first one. She was speechless that people actually wanted to drink such a disgusting thing. Li Jingui packed her things. As long as Lu Sanyang did not enter this line of work, she wouldn't make a fuss about it and ruin her job. Madame Wei came back with a poached egg for Lu Sanyang. Lu Sanyang said sweetly, Mother, feed me. Madame Wei smiled. You're old enough to eat it yourself. I'm busy. As Madame Wei sent Li Jingui out, she asked her again. Is there really no problem? Is my daughter all right? Li Jingui replied perfunctorily. Yes, your daughter is fine. She was jealous of Lu Sanyang's ability. After sending Li Jingui off, Madame Wei returned to the house and helped Lu Sanyang peel the egg. Lu Sanyang smiled as she enjoyed her mother's love. She could feel the affection from Madame Wei. It was sweet like honey. The love from Madame Wei seemed to have turned into energy that nourished her. Lu Sanyang still wanted to sleep with Madame Wei. Madame Wei also wanted to sleep with her daughter, but she thought better of it. How can you sleep with mother at this age? It'll be embarrassing if word gets out. If word got out, people would think that her daughter was still a baby. At the age of marriage, reputation was the most important for girls. After hiring the witch, Madame Wei was relieved. Other than working in the restaurant, she was also helping her children select a spouse. Lu Sanyang was at home making shoes. In the blink of an eye, it was May. The weather was already hot. Lu Sanyang often made plum syrup. She placed it in a bucket and hung it in the well for a night. The next day, she pulled it out and drank it. It was sour, sweet, refreshing, and most of all, delicious. Plum syrup was the family's favorite during the entire summer. Today, Madame Wei helped Lu Dalong dress up. "Dalong, did you remember what I told you?" Lu Dalong looked a little shy and nodded. He was a little nervous and did not know where to put his hands. "I remember it clearly." Madame Wei glanced at Lu Dalong. "Then tell me what you remember." Lu Dalong answered. "When I get there, I'll ask her if she's here to get her third aunt's basket." Blind dates needed to be unintentional. At a glance, if they liked each other, the two families could talk about it later. If they didn't like each other, they would just pretend nothing happened. This was a custom passed down from ancient times, and everyone abided by it. Most of the time, blind dates would take place in a random store. The boy would pretend to be shopping at the store and take a look at the girl. Lu Dalong's blind date was arranged by the two families. He would go to a place with a basket to see the girl who would come to pick up the basket. Inside the basket, Madame Wei prepared some gifts for the girl to take home. Madame Wei was satisfied with Lu Dalong's answer. Her son had grown up. When it came to marriage, he was a little shy, but everyone was the same. Lu Sanyang smiled and held Madame Wei's arm. "Mother, I want to go with first brother to take a look." Madame Wei agreed, thinking to herself that Lu Dalong might be more emboldened to approach the girl with his sister around. Lu Erlang wanted to go too. "Mom, I want to go too." Madame Wei immediately shouted. "In your dreams." Lu Erlang was not angry at being shouted at. If his mother did not allow him to go, he could simply sneak out. Lu Sanyang already knew that this blind date would be successful. At this moment, Lu Dalong had already gone out with the basket on his back. The appointed place was beside a grocery store on South Street. Lu Dalong had a basket on his back while he stood at the side waiting for the girl to come. Lu Sanyang and Madame Wei sat at a stall not far away and ordered a bowl of noodles to eat. Lu Dalong looked a little nervous. He was worried that the girl would not like him. Madame Wei was not in the mood to eat the noodles. She was focused on Lu Dalong. Just when Lu Dalong was getting anxious from waiting, a girl carried a child over. Lu Dalong looked straight at her and was at a loss. Seeing Lu Dalong, the girl walked straight up to him. Lu Dalong looked at the child in the girl's arms and was at a loss. His mother did not tell him that the girl whom he was on blind date with, had a child. Lu Dalong mumbled. "Are you here to get the basket your third aunt left behind?" Lu Dalong still had some hope that this child wasn't hers. The girl looked at Lu Dalong and smiled. She put the sleeping child into the basket and carried it on her back. "Thank you very much. Bye." Lu Dalong stood rooted to the ground with his mouth open, watching as the girl walked away with the basket. Madame Wei, who was watching from afar, was so angry that she was about to lose her temper. "Liar. This evil matchmaker actually tricked me into coming here and told me that despite coming from a poor family, the girl was pretty and young. This girl is obviously a divorced woman with a child." Lu Sanyang was also surprised. As far as she could remember from the memory in her previous life, her future sister-in-law was indeed from a poor family, but she was also fair and good-looking. She was a little tall, but because she was too tall, she was often mocked upon. Where did this woman come from? Lu Sanyang comforted Madame Wei. "Mother, is there a mistake? Don't be anxious yet." Madame Wei was furious. "I want to ask that old witch why she lied to me." Lu Sanyang looked in Lu Dalong's direction and found that he was already gone. Madame Wei wanted Lu Sanyang to go back alone while she went to settle the score with the matchmaker. Lu Sanyang panicked a little. This was completely different from her previous life. If there was something wrong with his brother's blind date, would his marriage change too? At the thought of this, Lu Sanyang felt anxious. Indeed, from the beginning, many things were different. The trouble that should not have befallen her family fell upon her family. Chu Yan, who should not have known her, seemed to be pestering her too. Lu Sanyang paid the bill and was about to go home when a few officers approached the noodle stall. Seeing the officers, Lu Sanyang was reminded of Officer Zhou. Fortunately, he wasn't among them. Doviko, the officer asked. Have you seen a strange woman with a crying baby? Chapter 30. Human Trafficking Case. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 30. Human Trafficking Case. Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations. The stall owner replied nervously, Sir, no. If we saw someone like that, we would definitely tell you. Then, he asked. Sir, what's going on? Is there a human trafficker in Yong County? The officer nodded. Since May, 3 children under the age of 2 have been kidnapped, and the human trafficker is very skilled and sneaky. Everyone who has children at home, be careful. Once the children were taken, the possibility of finding them was very low. If they could find them, the children might already be a corpse. If they couldn't, they didn't know what it would be like for the children. Upon hearing this, the stall owners nearby started to worry, because they all had a child at home. The officer sighed and continued. As far as I know, the missing children are all girls. I don't know if the human trafficker only kidnaps girls, but it's never wrong to be careful. The stall owners heaved a sigh of relief. This is too scary. Sir, you have to catch the human trafficker as soon as possible. People like them deserve to be beheaded right on the spot. Women spent 10 months carrying a child, but the human trafficker just kidnapped them like that. From then on, the mothers and children would never see each other again. They wouldn't even know if their baby was dead or alive. The officers hated human traffickers the most. If they caught them, they would be severely punished. The imperial court also hated human traffickers. Once they were caught, they would surely receive capital punishment. After questioning, the officer left. Lu Sanyang frowned and could not help but think of the girl who came to get the basket earlier. She left the stall and without a moment of hesitation, Lu Sanyang went straight to the government office. She thought that she would never enter the government office again. But she did not expect to come back so soon. She told the guard that she had a clue about the human trafficker. The guard immediately let her in. When Officer Zhou saw Lu Sanyang, he was a little surprised. Miss Lu. Lu Sanyang was a little embarrassed. Officer Zhou. Officer Zhou smiled. I was a little rude last time. I'm sorry. Miss Lu, please don't mind it. At first, Officer Zhou thought of using all kinds of methods to get Lu Sanyang to help him find his daughter. However, later on, he thought it through. Lu Sanyang was just a girl. She had her own way of doing things and he shouldn't be too selfish. Lu Sanyang was still a little embarrassed. She looked at Officer Zhou and suddenly frowned. Officer Zhou, it had only been a month since they last met, but why was there a strange black aura around Officer Zhou? Lu Sanyang was panicky for a moment before regaining her composure. Seeing the black aura around Officer Zhou, she immediately understood that she had become stronger. Lu Sanyang recalled the dream she had a few days ago and wondered if the dream was true. Buddhist light and scriptures. At the thought of this, Lu Sanyang's face turned pale. Officer Zhou was a little anxious. Miss Lu, are you all right? Should we call a doctor? Lu Sanyang shook her head. I'm fine. I have something to tell Magistrate Wei. Perhaps I can provide him with some clues. Officer Zhou was delighted. He quickly led her in without a second thought. Because of the human trafficking cases, Wei Shilai hadn't been able to sleep for past few days. Under his management, the small town had always been peaceful and never seen anything like this before. The fire at the mortuary almost caused him to lose his post. Shortly after that happened, these human trafficking cases emerged. There were already 3 cases in the town, but what about the other villages? Officer Zhou brought Lu Sanyang into the inner hall. "Sir, someone came to provide clues." Wei Shilai rubbed his forehead. "Quick, invite the person in." When he raised his head and saw Lu Sanyang, Wei Shilai was delighted. "Miss Lu." Lu Sanyang smiled as well. "Greetings, Magistrate Wei." Wei Shilai got up from his seat. "Miss Lu, are you here to provide clues? This case is really giving me a headache." It was unknown if the human trafficker wanted money or was simply taking revenge on the rich, but the targeted families were all rich with powerful backgrounds. If the daughter of a rich family was lost, the family would put pressure on the government to find their missing children. Lu Sanyang told him about Lu Dalong's blind date. After saying that, she added, "I'm not sure if my speculation is true, but she seems suspicious." Wei Shilai smiled gratefully. "Miss Lu, thank you. We're already very grateful that you can give us a hint." As long as there was a clue, he knew where to begin. Moreover, according to Lu Sanyang, the woman holding the child was indeed very suspicious. Although he was not sure, this was the most useful clue at the moment. Wei Shilai immediately instructed his men to investigate. Then, he smiled apologetically at Lu Sanyang. "Miss Lu, please bring your eldest brother to the government office. He has seen that woman up close. He might have some useful information." Lu Sanyang thought for a moment and nodded. She was sure that the woman was not there for the blind date. Lu Sanyang left the government office and went home. However, on the way, she found some notices. They were posted by the rich families whose children were missing. This incident created a huge unrest among the commoners. Families that were considered rich had already hired skilled guards to protect their children. When Lu Sanyang returned home, Lu Erlang was already back. He asked, "Sanyang, is first brother all right?" Lu Erlang also saw the woman carrying the basket away with a child and felt strange. His mother probably wouldn't find a girl who already had a child for his eldest brother. Lu Erlang felt bad for Lu Dalong. He couldn't stand this humiliation, let alone Lu Dalong, who watched the woman put the child in the basket and walked away. Lu Sanyang said, "There must be something wrong. We'll know when mother comes back." Lu Sanyang was also a little worried. Such a thing had never happened in her previous life. Now that it happened, would it ruin her brother's marriage? Just as Lu Erlang was about to agree, the door was pushed open and Lu Dalong came in with a skinny boy. Lu Dalong carried the boy back to his room and said to Lu Sanyang without looking back, "Sanning, hurry up and get some syrup." At this moment, someone ran in and said anxiously, "No need, there is no need." Seeing that the boy was taken inside by Lu Dalong, the woman was so anxious that she was about to cry. Lu Sanyang had already rushed to the kitchen. She put 2 spoonfuls of sugar into water and came out with it. She smiled and said, "Miss, take a seat first. Don't worry. It's all right." Lu Sanyang smiled. Her sincere smile comforted the woman. Lu Sanyang did not expect her future sister-in-law, Tangan, to come to her house in such a way.